Sir Gawain and the Green Knight by Anonymous. Translation by Simon Armitage. Fit 3. Well before sunrise, the servants were stirring. The guests who were going had called for their grooms, and they scurried to the stables to ready the steeds, trussing and tying all the trammel and tack. The high-ranking nobles got ready to ride, jumped stylishly to their saddles and seized the reins, then cantered away on their chosen courses. The lord of that land was by no means last to be rigged out for riding with the rest of his men. After mass, he wolfed down a meal, then made for the hunting grounds with his hunting horn. So as morning was lifting its lamp to the land, his lordship and huntsmen were high on horseback, and the canny kennelmen had coupled the hounds and opened the cages and called them out. On the bugles they blew 3 bellowing notes to a din of baying and barking, and the dogs which chased or wandered were chastened by whip. As I heard it, we're talking 100 top hunters at least. The handlers hold their hounds, the huntsmen's hounds run free. Each bugle blast rebounds between the trunks of trees. As the cry went up, the wild creatures quaked. The deer in the dale, quivering with dread, hurtled to high ground but were headed off by the ring of beaters who bawled and roared. The stags of the herd with their high-branched heads, and the broad-horned bucks were allowed to pass by, for the lord of the land had laid down a law that man should not maim the male in close season. But the hinds were halted with hollers and whoops, and the din drove the does to sprint for the dells. Then the eye can see that the air is all arrows. All across the forest they flashed and flickered, biting through hides with their broad heads. What? They bleat as they bleed, and they die on the banks. And always the hounds are hard on their heels, and the hunters on horseback come hammering behind with stone-splitting cries as if cliffs had collapsed. And those animals which escaped the aim of the archers were steered upon from the slopes down to the rivers and streams, and set upon and seized at the stations below. So perfect and practiced were the men at their posts, and so great were the greyhounds which grappled with the deer that prey was pounced on and dispatched with speed and force. The lord's heart leaps with life. Now on, now off his horse. All day he hacks and drives, and dusk comes in due course. So through the lime-leaf border the lord led the hunt, while snug in his sheets lay slumbering Gawain, dozing as the daylight dappled the walls, under a splendid cover, enclosed by curtains. And while snoozing he heard a slyly made sound, the sigh of a door swinging slowly aside. From below the bedding he brings up his head, and lifts the corner of the curtain a little, wondering warily what it might be. It was she, the lady, looking her loveliest, most quietly and craftily closing the door, nearing the bed. The knight felt nervous. Lying back, he assumed the shape of sleep, as she stole towards him with silent steps, then clasped the curtain and crept inside, then sat down softly at the side of his bed and awaited him. Wakening for a good long while, Gawain lay still, in his state of false sleep, turning over in his mind what this matter might mean, and where the lady's unlikely visit might lead. Yet he said to himself, instead of this stealth, I should openly ask what her actions imply. So he stirred and stretched, turned on his side, lifted his eyelids, and, looking alarmed, signed himself hurriedly with his hand as if saving his life. Her chin is pale, her cheeks are ruddy red with health, her smile is sweet, she speaks with lips that love to laugh. Good morning, Sir Gawain, said the graceful lady. You sleep so soundly one might sidle in here. You're tricked and you're trapped, but let's make a truce, or I'll besiege you in your bed, and you'd better believe me. She giggled girlishly as she teased Sir Gawain. The man in the bed said, Good morning, ma'am. I'll contentedly attend whatever task you set, and in serving your desires I shall seek your mercy, which seems my best plan in the circumstances. And he loaded his light-hearted words with laughter. But, my gracious lady, if you grant me leave, will you pardon this prisoner and prompt him to rise? Then I'll quit these covers and pull on my clothes, and our words will flow more freely back and forth. Not so, beautiful sir, the sweet lady said. Bide in your bed. My own plan is better. I'll tuck in your covers, corner to corner, then playfully parley with the man I have pinned. because I know your name, the knight Sir Gawain, framed through the realm whichever road he rides, whose princely honor is highly praised amongst lords and ladies and everyone alive. And right here you lie, and we are left all alone with my husband and the huntsman away in the hills, and the servants snoring and my maids asleep, and the door to this bedroom barred with a bolt. I have in my house an honored guest, so I'll take my time. I'll be talking to him for a while. You're free to have my all. Do with me what you will. I'll come just as you call, and swear to serve you well. In good faith, said Gawain, such gracious flattery, though in truth I'm not nearly such a noble knight. I don't dare to receive the respect you describe, and in no way warrant such worthy words, but by God I'd be glad if you would give me the right to serve your desires, and with action or speech bring you perfect pleasure. The honor would be priceless, said the gracious lady. Sir Gawain, in good faith, how improper on my part if I were to imply any slur or slight on your status as a knight. But what lady in this land wouldn't latch the door, wouldn't rather hold you as I do here, in the company of your clever conversation, forgetting all grief and engaging in joy, than hug to her heart a hoard of gold? I praise the Lord who upholds the high heavens, for I have what I hoped for above all else by his grace. That lovely-looking maid, she charmed him, and she chased, but every mood she made he countered, case by case. Madam, said our man, may Mary bless you. In good faith you are kind, and the fairest of the fair. Some fellows are praised for feats they perform. I hardly deserve to receive such respect, whereas you are genuinely joyful and generous. By Mary, she declared, it's quite the contrary. Were I the wealthiest woman in the world, with priceless pearls in the palm of my hand to bargain with and buy the best of all men, then for all the signs you have shown me, sir, of kindness, courtesy, and exquisite looks, a picture of perfection now proved to be true, no person on this planet would be picked before you. In fairness, said Gawain, you sound far better, but I'm proud of the price you would pay from your purse, and will swear to serve you as my sovereign forever. Let Christ now know that Gawain is your knight. Then they muse on many things through morning and midday, and the lady stares with a loving look. But Gawain is a gentleman and remains on guard, and although no woman could be warmer or more winning, he is cool in his conduct on account of the scene he foresees. The strike he must receive, as cruel fate decrees. The lady begs for leave. At once, Gawain agrees. She glanced at him, laughed, and gave her goodbye, then stood and stunned him with astounding words. May the Lord repay you for your prize performance, but I know that Gawain would never be your name. But why not? Asked the knight, in need of an answer, afraid that some fault of his manners had failed him. The beautiful woman blessed him, then rebuked him. A good man like Gawain, so greatly guarded, the embodiment of courtliness to the bones of his being, could never have lingered so long with a lady without craving a kiss, as politeness requires, or coaxing a kiss with his closing words. Very well, said Gawain, let's do as you wish. If a kiss is your request, I shall keep my promise faithfully to fulfill you, so ask no further. The lady comes close, cradles him in her arms, leans nearer and nearer, then kisses the knight. Then they courteously commend one another to Christ, and without one more word the woman is away. He leaps from where he lies at the heck of a lick, calls for his chamberlain, chooses his clothes, makes himself ready, then marches off to Mass. Then he went for a meal, which was made and waiting, and was merry and amused till the moon had silvered the view. No man felt more at home, tucked in between those two, the cute one and the crone. Their gladness grew and grew. And the lord of the land still led the hunt, driving hinds to their death through holts and heaths, and by the setting of the sun had slaughtered so many of the does and other deer that it beggared belief. Then finally the folk came flocking to one spot, and quickly they collected and counted the kill. Then the leading lords and their left-hand men chose the finest deer, those fullest with fat, and ordered them to cut open by those skilled in the art. They assessed and sized every slain creature, and even on the feeblest found 2 fingers worth of fat. Through the sliced open throat they seized the stomach, and butchered innards were bound in a bundle. Next they lopped off the legs and peeled back the pelt, and hooked out the bowels through the broken belly, but carefully, being cautious not to cleave the knot. Then they clasped the throat, and clinically they cut the gullet from the windpipe, then garbaged the guts. Then the shoulder blades were severed with sharp knives and slotted through a slit so that the hide stayed whole. Then the beasts were prized apart at the breast, and they went to work on the grallicking again, riving open the front as far as the hind fork, fetching out the offal, then with further purpose filleting the ribs in the recognized fashion. And the spine was subject to a similar process, being pared to the haunch so it held as one piece, then hoisting it high and hacking it off. And its name is the numbles, as far as I know, and just that. Its hind legs pulled apart. They slit the fleshy flaps, then cleave and quickly start to break it down its back. Then the heads and necks of hinds were hewn off, and the choice meat of the flanks chopped away from the chine, and a fee for the crows was cast into the copes. Then each side was skewered, stabbed through the ribs, and heaved up high, hung by its hocks, and every person was paid with appropriate proportions. Using pelts for plates, the dogs pogged out on liver and lights and stomach linings, and a blended sop of blood and bread. The kill horn was blown, and the bloodhounds bayed. Then hauling their meat, they headed for home. Sounding, howling wails on their hunting horns as the daylight died, they had covered the distance, and were back in the abode where Gawain sat biding his time. Warm friends, warm flames will meet the huntsman's home return. Gawain as well will greet the host. Bright hearth fires burn. Then the whole of the household was ordered to the hall, and the women as well as their maids in waiting. And once assembled, he instructs the servants that the venison will be revealed in full view, and in excellent humor he asked that Gawain should see for himself the size of the kill, and showed him the side slabs sliced from the ribs. "Are you pleased with this pile? Have I won your praise? Does my skill at this sport deserve your esteem?" "Why, yes," said the other. "It's the hugest haul I've ever seen, out of season, for several years." "And I give it all to you, Gawain," said the master, "for according to our contract, it is yours to claim." "Just so," said Gawain, "and I'll say the same. For whatever I've won within these walls, such gains will be graciously given to you." So he held out his arms and hugged the lord and kissed him in the kindliest way he could. "You're welcome to my winnings, to my one profit, though I'd gladly be given you any greater prize." "I'm grateful," said the lord, "and Gawain, this gift would carry more worth if you cared to confess by what wit you won it, and when and where." "That wasn't our pact," he replied, "so don't pry. You'll be given nothing greater. The agreement we have holds good." They laugh aloud and trade wise words which match their mood. When supper's meal is made, they dine on dainty food. Later they lounged by the lord's fire and were served unstintingly with subtle wines, and agreed to the game again next morning, and to play by the rules already in place. Any takings to be traded between the two men at night when they met, no matter what the merchandise, they concurred on this contract in front of the court, and drank on the deal, and went on drinking till late, when they took their leave at last, and every person present disappeared to bed. By the third cackle of the crowing cock, the lord and his liegemen are leaping from their beds, and mass and the morning meal are taken, and riders are rigged out ready to run as day dawns. They leave the levels loud and howling hunting horns. The huntsmen loose the hounds through thickets and through thorns. Soon they picked up a scent at the side of the swamp, and the hounds which first found it were urged ahead by a wild-voiced hunter and his wailing words. The pack responded with vigor and pace, alert to the trail, 40 lurchers at least. Then such a raucous din rose up all around them. It ricocheted and rang through the rocky slopes. The hounds were mushed with hollers, and the horn. Then suddenly they swerved and swarmed together in a wood between a pool and a precipice. On a mound near a cliff, on the margins of the marsh, where toppled stones lay scattered and strewn, they coursed toward their quarry with huntsmen close at heel. Then a crew of them ringed the hillock and the cliff until they were certain that inside their circle was the beast whose being the bloodhounds had sensed. Then they riled the creature with their rowdy ruckus, and suddenly he breaks the barrier of beaters. The biggest of wild boars has bolted from this cover, ancient in years and estranged from the herd, savage and strong, a most massive swine with a fearsome grunt. And the group were disgruntled, for 3 men were thrown down by the first of his thrusts. Then he fled away, fast, before inflicting further damage. The other huntsmen bawled, "Hi!" and "Hey, hey!" blasted their bugles, blew to regroup, so the dogs and the men made a merry din, tracking him noisily, testing him time and time again. The boar would stand at bay and aim to maul and maim the thronging dogs, and they would yelp and yowl in pain. The front men stepped forward to fire a shot, aimed arrows at him, which were often on target, but their points could not pierce his impenetrable shoulders, and bounced away from his bristly brow. The smooth, slender shafts splintered into pieces, and the heads glanced away from where they hit. Battered and baited by such bombardment, in a frenzied fury he flies at the men, hurts them horribly as he hurtles past, so that many grew timid and retreated a tad. But the master of the manor gave chase on his mount, the boldest of beast hunters, his bugle blaring, trumpeting the tally-ho, and tearing through thickets, till the setting sun slipped from the western sky. So the day was spent in pursuit of this style, while our lovable young lord had not yet left his bed, and cosseted in costly quilted covers, there he remained. The lady at first light did not neglect Gawain, but went to wake the knight, and meant to change his mind. She approaches the curtains, parts them, and peeps in, at which Sir Gawain makes her welcome at once, and with prompt speech she replies to the prince, settling by his side and giggling sweetly, looking at him lovingly before launching her words. If this is Gawain who greets me, I am galled that a man so dedicated to doing his duty cannot heed the first rule of honorable behavior, which has entered through one ear and exited the other. You have already lost what yesterday you learned, and the truest lesson my tongue could teach. What lesson? Asked the knight. I know of none, though if discourtesy has occurred, then correct me, of course. I encouraged you to kiss, the lady said kindly, and to claim one quickly when one is required, an act which ennobles any knight worth the name. Dear lady, said the other, don't think such a thing. I dare not kiss in case I am declined. If refused, I'd be at fault for offering in the first place. In truth, she told him, you cannot be turned down. If someone were so snooty as to snub your advance, a man like you has the means of his muscles. Yes, by God, said Gawain, what you say holds good, but such heavy-handedness is frowned on in my homeland, and so is any gift not given with grace. What kiss you request I will courteously supply. Have what you want, or hold off, whichever the case. So bending from above, the fair one kissed his face. The two then talk of love, its grief, also its grace. I would like to learn, said the noble lady, and please find no offense, but how can it follow that a lord so lively and young in years, a champion of chivalry across the country, and in chivalry the chief most aspect to choose, as all knights acknowledge, is loyalty and love? For when tales of truthful knights are told in both title and text, the topic they describe is how lords have laid down their lives for love, endured for many days love's dreadful ordeal, then vented their feelings with avenging valor by bringing great bliss to a lady's bedroom. And you, the most notable of all noble knights, whose fame goes before him, yes, how can it follow that twice I have taken this seat at your side, yet you have not spoken the smallest syllable which belongs to love or anything like it? A knight so courteous and considerate in his service really ought to be eager to offer this pupil some lessons in love, and to lead by example. Is he actually ignorant, this man of eminence, or does he deem me too dunce-like to hear of dalliances? I come to learn of love and more. A lady all alone. Perform for me before my husband heads for home. In faith, said Gawain, may God grant you fortune. It gives me great gladness and seems a good game that a woman so worthy should want to come here and be happy and good-hearted with a humble knight, unfit to her favors. I am flattered indeed. But to take on the task of explaining true love, or touch the topics those love's tales tell of, with yourself, who I sense has more insight and skill in the art than I have, or even 100 of the likes of me, however long we live, would be somewhat presumptuous, I have to say. But to the best of my ability I'll do your bidding, bound as I am to honor you forever, and to serve you as long as our Savior preserves me. So the lady tempted, and teased him, trying to enmesh him in whatever mischief she had in mind, but fairly and without fault he defended himself. No evil in either of them, only ecstasy that day. At length, when they had laughed, the woman kissed Gawain politely. Then she left, and went on her own sweet way. Roused and risen, he was ready for mass. The meal of the morning was made and served. Then he loitered with the ladies the length of the day, while the lord of the land ranged left and right in pursuit of that pig which stampeded through the uplands, breaking his best hounds with its back-snapping bite when it stood embattled. Then bowmen would strike, goading it to gallop into open ground where the air was alive with the huntsman's arrows. That boar made the best men flinch and bolt, till at last his legs were like lead beneath him, and he hobbled away to hunker in a hole by a stony rise at the side of a stream. With the bank at his back, he scrapes the burrows, frothing and foaming foully at the mouth, whetting his white tusks. The hunters waited, irked by the effort of aiming from afar, but daunted by the danger of daring to venture too near. So many men before had fallen prey. They feared that fierce and frenzied boar whose tusks could slash and tear. Till his lordship hacks up, urging on his horse, spots the swine at standstill encircled by men, then handsomely dismounts and unhands his horse, brandishes a bright sword, and goes bounding onwards, wades through the water to where the beast waits. Aware that the man was wafting a weapon, the hog's hair stood on end, and its howling grunt made the fellows there fear for their master's fate. Then the boar burst forward, bounded at the lord, so that beast and hunter both went bundling into white water, and the swine came off worst, because the moment they clashed the man found his mark, knifing the boar's necks, nailing his prey, hammering it to the hilt, bursting the hog's heart. Screaming, it was swept downstream, almost slipping beneath. At least 100 hounds latch on with tearing teeth, then dragged to drier ground, the dogs complete its death. The kill was blown on many blaring bugle, and the unhurt hunters hollered and whooped. The chief amongst them, in charge of the chase, commanded the bloodhounds to bay at the boar. Then one who was wise in woodland ways began carefully to cut and carve up the carcass. First he hacks off its head and hoists it aloft, then roughly rives it right along the spine. He gouges out the guts and grills them over coals, and blended with bread they are tidbits for the bloodhounds. Next he fetches out the fillets of glimmering flesh and retrieves the intestines in time-honored style. Then the two sides are stitched together intact and proudly displayed on the strong pole. So with the swine swinging they swagger home, bearing the boar's head before the huntsman who had fought with his fists in the ford till the beast was slain. The day was dragged, it seemed, before he found Gawain, who comes when called, most keen to countenance the claim. Now the lord is loud with words and laughter, and speaks excitedly when he sees Sir Gawain. He calls for the ladies, plus the company of the court, and he shows off the meat slabs and shares the story of the hog's hulking hugeness and the full horror of the fight to the finish as it fled from the forest. And Gawain is quick to compliment the conquest, praising it as proof of the lord's prowess, for such prime pieces of perfect pork and such sides of swine were a sight to be seen. Then, admiringly, he handles the hog's great head, feigning fear to flatter the master's feelings. Now, Gawain, said the lord, I give you this game, as our wager warranted. As well you remember. Certainly, said Gawain, it shall be so, and graciously I shall give you my gains in exchange. He catches him by the neck and courteously kisses him, then a second time kisses him in a similar style. Now we're even, said Gawain. At this evening's end, the clauses of our contract have been kept, and you have what I owe. By St. Giles, the just lord says, the knight's the best I know. By wagering this way, his gains will grow and grow. Then the trestle tables were swiftly assembled, and cast with fine clothes. A clear living light from the waxen torches awakened the walls. Places were set, and supper was served, and a din arose as they revelled in a ring, around the fire in the fireplace, and the feasting party sang song after song, at supper and beyond, both traditional ditties and carols of the day, with as much amusement as a mouth could mention. The young woman and Gawain sat together, all the while, and so loving was that lady towards the young lord, with stolen glances and secret smiles, that it muddled his mind, and sent him half mad. But to snub a noblewoman was not in his nature, and though tongues might wag, he returned her attention all night. Before his friends retire, his lordship leads the night, heads for his hearth and fire to linger by its light. They supped and swapped stories and spoke again of the night to come next, which was New Year's Eve. Gawain pleaded politely to depart by morning, so in 2 days' time he might honor his treaty. But the lord was unswerving, insisting that he stayed. As an honest soul, I swear on my heart, you shall find the Green Chapel to finalize your affairs long before dawn on New Year's Day. So lie in your room and laze at your leisure while I ride my estate, and, as our terms dictate, we'll trade our trophies when the hunt returns. I've tested you twice and found you truthful. But think tomorrow, third time throw best. Now a lord can feel low whenever he likes, so let's chase cheerfulness while we have a chance. So those gentlemen agreed that Gawain would stay, and they took more drink, then by torchlight retired to their beds. Our man then sleeps a most reposed and peaceful rest. As hunters must, his host is up at dawn and dressed. After mass, the master grabs a meal with his men, and asks for his mount on that marvelous morning. All the grooms engaged to go with their lord were high on their horses before the hall gates. The fields were dazzling, fixed with frost, and the crown of sunrise rose scarlet and crimson, scalding and scattering cloud from the sky at the fringes of the forest. The dogs were set free, and the rumpus of the horns went ringing through the rocks. They fall on the scent of a fox, and follow, turning and twisting as they sniff out the trail. The young harrier yowls, and a huntsman yells. Then the pack come rushing to pick up the reek. Running as a rabble along the right track, the fox scurries ahead. They scamper behind and pursue him at speed when he comes within sight, haranguing him with horrific, ranting howls. Now and then he doubles back through thorny thickets, or halts and hearkens in a hem of hedge, until finally by a hollow he hurdles a fence, and carefully he creeps by the edge of a copse, convinced that his cunning has conned those canines. But unawares he wonders where they lie in wait, where greyhounds are gathered together, a group of 3. He springs back with a start, then twists and turns and flees with heavy and heaving heart. He tracks towards the trees. Such earthly elation, hearing those hounds, as they amassed to meet him, marauding together, and they bayed bloodily at the sight of his being, as if clustering cliffs had crashed to the ground. Here he was ambushed by bushwhacking huntsmen, waiting with a welcome of wounding words. There he was threatened and branded a thief, and always the hounds allowed him no ease. Often in the open the pack tried to pounce. Then that crafty Reynard would creep into cover. So his lordship and his lords were merrily led. In this manner, through the mountains until mid-afternoon, while our handsome hero snoozed contentedly at home, kept from the cold by the morning curtains. But love would not let her ladyship sleep, and the fervor she felt in her heart would not fade. She rose from her rest and rushed to the room in a flowing robe that reached to the floor, and was finished inside with fine trimmed furs. Her head went unhooded, but heavenly gems were entwined in her tresses, in clusters of 20. She wore nothing on her face. Her neck was naked, and her shoulders were bare to both back and breast. She comes into his quarters and closes the door, makes her way to the window and throws it open. Then sweet and swift in the speech she intends for his ear. "Oh, sir, how can you sleep when morning comes so clear?" And though his dreams are deep, he cannot help but hear. Yes, he dozes in a daze, dreams and mutters, like a mournful man with his mind on dark matters, how destiny might deal him a death blow on the day when he grapples with the giant in the Green Chapel, of how the strike of the axe must be suffered without struggle. But sensing her presence there, he surfaces from sleep, drags himself out of his dreams to address her, laughing warmly as she walks toward him and finds his face with the friendliest kiss. In a worthy style he welcomes the woman, and seeing her so lovely and alluringly dressed, every feature so faultless, her complexion so fine, a passionate heat takes hold of his heart. Speech tripped from their tongues, and they traded smiles, and a bond of friendship was formed there, all blissful and bright. They talk with tenderness and pride, and yet their plight is perilous, unless sweet Mary minds her knight. For that noble princess pushed him and pressed him, nudged him ever nearer to a limit where he needed to allow her love or impolitely reject it. He was careful to be courteous and avoid uncouthness, cautious that his conduct might be classified as sinful and counted as betrayal by the keeper of the castle. I shall not succumb, he swore to himself. With affectionate laughter, he fenced and deflected all the loving phrases which leapt from her lips. You shall bear the blame, said the beautiful one, if you feel no love for the female you lie with, and wound her more than anyone on earth to the heart. Unless, of course, there is a lady in your life to whom you are tied and so tightly attached that you could not begin to break the bond. So in honesty and trust, now tell me the truth. For the sake of all love, don't be secretive or speak with guile. You judge wrong, by St. John, he said to her and smiled. There is no other one and won't be for a while. Those words, said the woman, are the worst insult. But I asked, and you answered, and now I ache. Kiss me warmly, and then I will walk in the world in mourning like a lady who loved too much. Stooping and sighing, she kisses him sweetly, then withdraws from his side, saying as she stands, But before we part, will you find me some small favor? Will you give me some gift, a glove at least, that might leaven my loss when we meet in your memory? Well it were, said Gawain. I wish I had here my most priceless possession as a present of your sweetness, for over and over you deserve and are owed the highest prize I could hope to offer. But I would not wish on you a worthless token, and it strikes me as unseemly that you should receive nothing greater than a glove as a keepsake from Gawain. I am here on an errand in an unknown land, without men bearing bags of beautiful gifts, which I greatly regret through my regard for you. But man must live by his means, and neither mope or moan. The pretty one replies, Nay, noble knight, you mean you'll pass to me no prize? No matter, here is mine. She offers him a ring of rich red gold, and the stunning stone set upon it stood proud, beaming and burning with the brightness of the sun. What wealth it was worth you can well imagine, but he would not accept it, and said straightway, By God, no tokens will I take this time. I have nothing to give, so nothing will I gain. She insists he receive it, but still he resists, and swears on his name as a knight to say no. Snubbed by his decision, she said to him then, You refuse my ring because you find it too fine, and don't dare to be deeply indebted to me, so I give you my girdle, a lesser thing to gain. From around her body she unbuckled the belt, which tightened the tunic beneath her topcoat. A green silk girdle, trimmed with gold, exquisitely edged and hemmed by hand, and she sweetly beseeched Gawain to receive it in spite of its slightness and hoped he would accept. But still he maintained he intended to take neither gold nor girdle until, by God's grace, the challenge he had chosen was finally achieved. With apologies, I pray you are not displeased, but I must firmly refuse you, no matter how flattered I am. For all your grace, I owe 1,000 thank yous, ma'am. I shall, through sun and snow, remain your loyal man. And now he sends back my silk, the lady responded. So simple in itself, or so it appears, so little and unlikely, worth nothing or less. But the knight who knew the power knitted in it would pay a high price to possess it, probably. For the body which is bound within this green belt, as long as it is buckled robustly around him, will be safe against those who seek to strike him, and all the slyness on earth would see him slain. The man mulled it over, and it entered his mind that this girdle being given could be just the job to save him from the strike in this challenge at the chapel. With luck, it might let him escape with his life. So relenting at last, he let her speak, and promptly she pressed him to take the present, and he granted her wish, gave in with good grace, though the woman begged him not to whisper a word of this gift to her husband, and Gawain agreed. Those words of theirs within those walls should stay. His thanks are heartfelt then. No sooner can he say how much it matters when 3 kisses come his way. Then the lady departed, leaving him alone, for the man had amused her as much as he could, and once she has quit, he clothes himself quickly, rises and dresses from the richest of robes, stowing the lovelace safely aside, hiding it away from all hands and eyes. Then he went at once to the chapel of worship, privately approached the priest and implored him to allow his confession and to lead him in life, so his soul might be saved when he goes to his grave. Then fully and frankly he spoke of his sins, no matter how small, always seeking mercy, calling on that counselor to clear his conscience. The priest declares him so clean and so pure that the day of doom could dawn in the morning. Then in merrier mood he mingled with the ladies, caroling and carousing and carrying on, as never before, until nightfall. Folk feel and hear and see such boundless bliss and say, such charm and cheer, he's at his happiest since his arrival here. And long let him loiter there, looked after by love. Now the lord of the land was still leading his men, finishing off the fox he had followed for so long. He vaults a fence to flush out the victim, hearing that the hounds are harrying hard. Then Reynard scoots from the section of scrub, and a rabble of the pack rush right at his heels. Aware of his presence, the wary lord waits, then bares his bright sword and swishes at the beast, which shirks from its sharpness, and would have shot away, but a hound flew forward before it could flee, and under the hooves of the horses they have him. Worrying their quarry with woeful wailing, the lord hurtles from his horse and heaves the fox up, wrestles it from the reach of those ravenous mouths, holds it high over his head, and hurrahs manfully while the bloodthirsty bloodhounds bay and howl. And the other huntsmen hurried with their horns to catch sight of the slaughter and celebrate the kill. And when the company of clansmen had come together, the buglers blew with one mighty blast, and the others hallooed with open throats. A human could not hear a headier music than the rapturous roar which for Reynard's soul was raised. The dogs, due their reward, are patted, stroked, and praised. Then red fur rips, Reynard out of his pelt is prized. Then with night drawing near, they headed homewards, blaring their bugles with the fullness of their breath, and at last the lord lands in his lovely home to find, by the heat of the fireside, his friend, the good Sir Gawain, in glad spirits on account of the company he had kept with the ladies. His blue robe flowed as far as the floor. His soft-furred surcoat suited him well, and the hood which echoed it hung from his shoulders. Both hood and coat were edged in ermine. He meets the master in the middle of the room, greets him graciously with Gawain, saying, I shall first fulfill our formal agreement which we fixed in words when the drink flowed freely. He clasped him tight, and kisses him 3 times, with as much emotion as a man could muster. By the Almighty, said the master, you must have had luck to profit such a prize if the price was right. Oh, fiddlesticks to the fee, said the other fellow, as long as I have given the goods which I gained. By Mary, said the master, mine's a miserable match. I've hunted for hours with nothing to my name but this foul stinking fox. Fling its fur to the devil. So poor in comparison with your priceless prizes. These presents you impart, 3 kisses perfect and true. Enough, the knight retreats. I thank you through and through. The standing lord then speaks of how the fox fur flew. And with meals and mirth and minstrelsy, they made as much amusement as any mortal could, and among those merry men and laughing ladies, Gawain and his host got giddy together. Only lunatics and drunkards could have looked more delirious. Every person present performed party pieces, till the hour arrived when revelers must rest, and the company in that court heard the call of their beds. And lastly in the hall, humbly to his host, our knight says good night, and renews his gratitude. Your uncountable courtesies have kept me here this Christmas. Be honored by the king's kindness. If it suits, I submit myself as your servant, but tomorrow morning I must make a move. If you will, as you promised, please appoint some person to guide me, God willing, towards the Green Chapel, where my destiny will dawn on New Year's Day. On my honor, he replied, with hand on heart. Every promise I made shall be put into practice. He assigns him a servant to steer his course, to lead him through the land without losing time, to ride the fastest route between forest and fell. Gawain will warmly thank his host in terms that tell toward the women folk. The knight then waves farewell. It's with a heavy heart that guests in the hall are kissed and thanked for their care and kindness. They respond with speeches of the same sort, commending him to our Savior with sorrowful sights. Then politely he leaves the Lord and his household, and to each person he passes he imparts his thanks for taking such trouble in their service and assistance, and such attention to detail in attendance of duty, and every guest is grieved at the prospect of his going, as if honorable Gawain were one of their own. By tapering torchlight he was taken to his room, and brought to his bed to be at his rest. But,
If our knight sleeps soundly, I couldn't say, for the matter in the morning might be muddying his thoughts. So let him lie and think, in sight of what he sought. In time I'll tell if tricks work out the way they ought.